La Squadra is a branch of Passione which is filled with a multitude of different assassins who have many different approaches when it comes to assassination. Be them stealthy or loud, they are some of the best at what they do. Though if there was one of them whose calculative efforts and sheer dedication to the gang made them so terrifying that it put them as the top voted threat to Bruno's gangs in a Japanese poll done recently. I'm talking of course about the ageless classic, the man, Prosciutto, and his stand, the Grateful Dead. Prosciutto is one of the coolest, coldest, and most passionate members of La Squadra, showing dedication to both his squad and their mission, as he finds value in strong spirits and would be a perfect candidate for Capo if he ever chose to pursue that. I mean, he was even training a new recruit while on the job of tracking down the boss's daughter, so he's already shown that Capo spirit. Though, before we can get into that, we should actually understand the meaning behind his name. Prosciutto's name is in reference to the Italian meat dish, which is comprised of thinly sliced and cured pieces of ham. Created back in ancient Rome, it was a staple of Parma, as one of the earliest records on prosciutto comes from Cato the Elder, who talked up the prosciutto de Parma, saying it was the greatest and most extravagant flavor of prosciutto that he's ever had, making prosciutto more and more popular as time went on. To make prosciutto, you need to drain the juices from the meat and then dry it with salt over time. Along with this, making prosciutto is a long-term process, and may take up to 2 years if you're producing one of significant size. Now, the name itself is actually a modern form of the Latin name that it originally had, which was comprised of the words pro, which means in interest of, and exsurge, I think, which means to suck out moisture, meaning altogether prosciutto is a food in interest of sucking out all the moisture. Now, design-wise, prosciutto is actually one of the most classy of La Squadra, wearing a stylish slim two-piece suit with short, well-kept hair and a triple braid on the back of his head. His whole design is actually inspired from a Gucci Fall 1996 ready-to-wear catalog, specifically Georgina Greenville's open chest and black suit with a large necklace. Though Prosciutto's necklace is different, it seems to be a gigantic Magitama, a Shinso talisman which was said to ward off evil and grant a person good fortune, which might be in reference to how Prosciutto is actually immune to his own ability, something not entirely common in stand users, and that ability is the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead is a stand which takes the form of a severed upper torso adorned with eyes, with the Rocky saying that the reason it was done that way was to give it a supernatural feel. He actually originally had planned to give it a body, but stopped about halfway through, which gives it actually a very similar design to the Shoggoths of Cthulian mythos, which may in fact be one of the biggest inspirations on the Grateful Dead. The Shoggoth is a creature first described in the Lovecraft story At the Mountain of Madness, as a bubbling protoplasma adorned with countless eyes. Now, stats-wise, the Grateful Dead has a B in destructive power, E in speed, B in range, A in durability, E in precision, and C in developmental potential. Ability-wise, the Grateful Dead has one major ability, that being accelerated aging. Accelerated aging is an ability that allows the Grateful Dead to produce a gas-like substance. This gas then, when it comes in contact with a person, will begin to hyper-accelerate their bodies, turning a child into an old man in mere moments. Along with this, the aging comes with all the negative side effects of getting older, that of course being slower reaction times, weaker bodies, and of course, the worst of them all, wrinkle face. Along with this, the Grateful Dead can accelerate someone's age up to the point that they would naturally perish, though it is possible to stave off the aging effect either with coming in contact with ice or anything cold in general, as the accelerated aging is actually based off of the user's body temperature, meaning that the more someone moves around, the faster the aging takes effect, meaning that fighting back against the Grateful Dead is actually a real hassle. Though if the target manages to cool themselves down or places ice on their body at any point, it will nullify the effects of the Grateful Dead almost instantly, and it appears that the aging effect of the Grateful Dead is technically natural aging, as women seem to be affected slower than men. Also, interestingly enough, as I mentioned before, Prosciutto is actually completely immune to the effects of the Grateful Dead, but he can also choose to use it on himself if he so pleases. He also mentions if he's able to physically touch a target, he can accelerate them much quicker and more efficiently. Now, the ability itself seems to come from multiple places. First, of course, you have Prosciutto's name, as the youth being sucked out of the person is similar to having the water or juices drained from the meat that is used to make prosciutto. You also counteract the ability by either introducing cold water or ice or anything cold, which is also helped use to produce prosciutto as well. You also have its direct reference to the band that it gets its name from, that being the American rock band, The Grateful Dead, their first studio album, and a bit of history from the band itself. So let's start first with, of course, the meaning of the band name itself. The Grateful Dead's name stems from the mythological story of the Grateful Dead, which is a classic story told through multiple cultures about an adventurer who stumbles upon a ghost or a spirit with an unpaid debt. The traveler helps the spirit, and later on they're aided by something that ends up being the spirit that they helped. Prosciutto and Pesci are stand-ins for this story, Prosciutto giving Pesci the courage to act in the face of danger, and Pesci rewards this by not only attempting to save his life by pulling him back onto the train when Bruno pulled him off, but also almost killing Bruno. Next, you also have a reference to the Stan's weakness in the Grateful Dead's first album, The Grateful Dead. This album featured something called a murder ballad, which is a song that refers to a murder of someone or just in general a crime being committed. That song being Cold, Rain, and Snow, which is a song about a man murdering his wife for pushing him too far. The coldness of the rain and snow being a representation of something bad or awful that she put him through, thus making it a bane for the Grateful Dead's ability. Along with this, you also have the fact that the song is just a murder ballad, which fits perfectly for a Stan that belongs to an assassin, a paid murderer. But then you also have the very fun fact that the Grateful Dead, the band, on April 27th of 1971, recorded a live studio album with the Beach Boys in Flintmore East, New York City, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime mashup. And fun fact, though it didn't happen exactly on April 27th, Prosciutto's whole arc takes place on April of 2001, meaning that the month that Beach Boys and the Grateful Dead came together is the same month that the Beach Boys and Grateful Dead arcs happen. Alongside that band reference, you also have what I mentioned earlier, with the Grateful Dead being in reference to the Shoggoth of Cthulhu mythos. Neat little detail about that, the Grateful Dead's ability works by expunging gas from the eyes specifically, causing the age effect and the madness that comes with old age. The eyes of the Shoggoth are also used in a similar manner, causing the eyes to all those who look back at it. The reason I point this out is based on an interview with Kazuma Kaneko and Araki. Araki stated that when he showcases abilities, he takes a lot into mind. For example, if someone were to release poison gas from their shoulders, it would definitely need a hole. But the question is, what kind of hole would be most fitting? He's even stated in other works that when he designs a character's outfit and such, he likes to base it off of what their personality is like. This shows Araki takes a lot into mind when creating an ability and how to demonstrate that ability. So with the gas coming specifically from the eyes of the Grateful Dead, it shows that that is an important aspect to the character's design. Along with this, the Shoggoth of the story at the Mountains of Madness is collapsed inside a tunnel in the Arctic, buried under large chunks of ice. Yet again, playing into the Grateful Dead's weakness to ice and cold. Now, what makes Prosciutto so cool is how he appears to be a very strict and very generic villain on the surface, but has a soft and almost nice side to him, which only really comes to the surface when speaking to members of La Squadra, specifically Pesci, as his interactions with him are some of my favorite in all of GioGio. As instead of treating Pesci with disrespect, as some would assume a well-dressed gangster would do to his Quasimodo-esque looking lackey, Prosciutto wants to actually drag out the fighting spirit and passion laying inside of Pesci, as he realizes that Pesci is a very talented person. As Prosciutto doesn't just treat Pesci with regular respect, he treats him like an ally, a member of the gang. He's his friend, trying to inspire him with words of courage and bravery, while also trying to knock some sense into him, telling him that he wasn't mad at his fear of death, but his inability to act, along with being completely willing to lay down his life for the mission so Pesci could achieve it. Prosciutto is a perfect candidate for a Passione Capo, taking Bruno's words into heart when he said, "Being a leader is about protecting your subordinates and achieving your mission, no matter the cost." So when Prosciutto willingly ground his body into the wheels of the train so the Grateful Dead can continue to infect the gang, he did so also his bro Pesci could complete the mission. Though I wanted to clear up one major misconception about Part 5 that involves Prosciutto and Pesci, and that is, they are never actually ever referred to as blood brothers or related in any way in the part. Pesci does use the term Anki, or big brother, when referring to Prosciutto, but that is actually a very common term used by the Yakuza when referring to their superiors. As in the Yakuza, everyone is technically part of a family, so you use family terms, just like in La Squadra, with the point of Pesci calling Prosciutto big bro is to point out what type of character that he actually is. But that's a video for a future date. And if you enjoyed this video and like to see more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MannyNotTheBadGuy. And if you want to ward off the Grateful Dead's aging ability, well, first you need to buy a copy of Shimonetta at buyshimonetta.com. This will allow you to ward off that thing by thinking about sex.